Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nick Lundberg.
Thanks. As you can see, I'm here by myself. Unfortunately, my colleague Jared couldn't make it, but we'll see him in the presentation in a little bit. So as mentioned, I'm from Spokane, Washington. Spokane is on the, woo, whoop, whoop. Any other Washingtonians in here? Yeah, okay. So Spokane is on the eastern side of the state. We're right next to Idaho. If you haven't been, it's a great place to visit. So as mentioned, I'm the Title I coordinator for Spokane Public Schools, and in that role, I manage Title I for all the elementary schools. I have an elementary background. I was an assistant principal and then also elementary teacher. And with over 15 years experience, it's all been in Title I. So, just like you, I'm passionate about kids and really passionate about closing those achievement gaps for underserved kids. So before we begin today, I wanted to just set the stage for you and give you a moment just to reflect. So thinking about your education journey, what were those most meaningful professional development experiences for you? And as an elementary teacher, I'd be remiss if I didn't have you do a little turn and talk or a little whip around. So go ahead and share with somebody next to you. What were those most powerful experiences for you as an educator? So I know when I think about this question, as a new teacher, I was just soaking up all that professional development, but really two things stood out to me. It was when I was watching myself teach or watching others teach that really elevated above all other professional development. So another question for you to think about. In your school or district, what structures do you currently have in place that allow teachers to authentically self-reflect on their practice? And I mean, when I say authentically, like really going beyond that teacher evaluation process, what structures do you currently have that really allow teachers to self-reflect? And then another question to think about, we're all doing a lot of work around equitable teaching practices. So what do you currently have in your district, your school or district, that allow teachers to reflect on that growth? So if we're learning about equity and how to better serve our kids, how are teachers getting feedback or progress monitoring with that? And another way to think about that is what structures or systems do you have in place that really allows teachers to see themselves the way students do? And then thinking about these questions, what would your teachers say? So if you're a teacher in here right now, what would your colleague, would they say the same thing, do you think? If you're an administrator, what do you think your teachers would say to these questions? So our plan for today is we're going to first start by sharing some context around our school district. The context is going to help you understand the reason why we chose this AI coaching tool. And then we're just going to talk about AI and the AI coaching tool. And then I'll give you a little update on our current implementation of this tool. And then lastly, I want to leave you with how could this tool or just this idea of teacher self-reflection be a value added in your school or district. So a couple disclaimers for you. I'm not an expert in AI, so I just want to manage the expectations here. I won't be signing any books or anything after this. Rough crowd. Thank you, okay. Also, I wanted to just give you a clear picture of our school district is really at the beginning stages of this. We have not arrived, we're just beginning. So I don't want to come off as like this expert that our teachers are just flooding through the doors for this tool. We're really the beginning stages and really learning by month of how best to implement this tool in our school district. So we'll start off with, this is our school district. So again, let's build some context. So our school district, we teeter from second to third largest in the state of Washington, depending on the year. We serve about 30,000 students, and we have about 5,000 teachers. Now, this is our state report card, from our state website. And to be honest, this is very convicting for me, in that we got to do better. Our kids deserve better teachers, and they deserve better educators overall, right? Myself included. So, I'm sure you're in a very similar boat. So as far as Title I goes, just to give you a little idea of where we're at, most of our schools are Title I schools, and we have a lot of schools that are currently in improvement. We just had 6 to 8 enter this last school year, and we're expecting to have a few more enter into that category. So a huge need in our school district. So I want to give you a little context around our professional development, because this will help you understand again why we chose this tool. So I'm going to use the pandemic as a marker in time. So pre-pandemic, the structure of our professional development was very loose. It was all in-person PD. And when I say loose, we had a professional development system, but it was very vague. In other words, it was mostly school-directed, a lot of book studies, etc. So there was little organizational structure. Most of it was facilitated by our instructional coaches. And as far as content goes, the highlight of our professional development was lab classrooms. And teachers loved the lab classrooms. It was the most powerful strategy that we had for professional development. We did have some PD focused on curriculum. As Common Core came out, we started a new adoption with ELA and math, especially in elementary. So of course we had professional development related to that. So now post-pandemic, the state we're in now, interestingly, a lot of our professional development still remains asynchronous or virtual. So we have very little in-person PD. And interestingly, over the last 5 years, we've really decreased our instructional coaching staff. So a lot of this is in hindsight. A lot of factors are contributing to this, but most of the PD now is facilitated by district administrators, such as myself. And we don't have lab classrooms like we had before. So we're currently talking about what does this look like in the new environment post-pandemic. One highlight, our superintendent was really passionate about developing more of like a university type professional development system. So we now have what we call SPS University. And this has been really great to streamline professional development for our teachers. So if you're an elementary teacher, you now have a pathway of classes that you need to take. And they're arranged into, that 100, 200, 300, 400 level. And a lot of our content currently is around, we're in year 1 of an ELA adoption in elementary, so that's taking up a lot of our time. And we do a lot of work with workshop model, PLCs, and universal design for learning. So when we look at, and again, this is all very general, but we have some problems, right? One thing that we've noticed as district leadership has talked with principals is our teachers now really don't have that capacity that they used to have with self-reflecting on their lessons. One part of that could be that our lab classrooms have gone away, and again, that's something that we're talking about. How does this look in the post-pandemic world? And again, one interesting thing is we look at the last 5 to 7 years, and this actually happened prior to the pandemic, we transitioned from coaching staff to more intervention staff. And it's good and bad, right? But one effect of that has been our core instruction across the board, K-12, has plummeted. We are really needing help with our core instruction. And then we also noticed that we used to do a lot better with data dialogues, PLCs, and when we look at the last 10 years, we see how it's faded away. Especially with teacher collaboration, we're having a real struggle with authentic teacher collaboration, and that collective efficacy in schools where we're all working towards the same goal. So with these problems, what we thought about was, well, how do we start addressing these problems? And we're having conversations about, using Title I for changing our staffing model to more coaches. But as we do that, how does that look in the post-pandemic world? We're also talking about those lab classrooms. So one thing that just kind of came across was an AI coaching tool. And this tool, as we looked into it, allows teachers to self-reflect on their practice. So what we thought about was, as we looked into this tool, what could this lead to? And what we realized is, in our district, and I know what I've learned is across the nation, many of your school districts are doing a good job with video coaching or video sharing. In our district, that has never happened. So as we think about, lab classrooms more looking a little bit different than they did before, what could this lead to? So if we could get a teacher to just start building that practice of self-reflection, could we then lead them to some more video sharing with colleagues? Or even, we have some resistant teachers to coaching, which is one of the reasons why principals decided to transition to intervention staff. Well, I have too many teachers that are resistant to coaching. They're not using their coach. And most importantly, what we wondered is, could this tool help us build back that trust and collective efficacy in our schools? So let's pause for a second and talk a little bit about AI. I know AI brings up a lot of emotion currently. Last year, with ChatGPT, it really started a lot of conversations. So what is artificial intelligence? So really it falls into two categories. You have general AI and you have specific AI. With general AI, it's AI technology designed to perform human-level cognitive tasks over a variety of areas. Where specific AI is more for a specific task, so AI technology to do something really well, one specific thing. So like Face ID on your phone, that would be a narrow or specific AI. So there's many types of specific AIs, and AI coaching falls into this category. So AI coaching does a specific, it's a specific tool for a specific job. So just a little bit about what this looks like for a teacher. So a classroom teacher would video themselves. So they have a goal in mind. Maybe I want to video a lesson around student engagement, see how well my students are engaged. So I'd upload a video into the AI coaching tool, and this is what it looks like. So it shows you your coaching cycles, and then over on the right-hand side, this is where the AI technology comes in. So it's a bot that essentially walks a teacher through the process. So you go through an analyze phase, then you enact, do some goal setting, you enact, and then you reflect and reflect on the impact. So here's a good example of the interaction between the teacher and the bot. So at the bottom, notice the conversation and the probes that the bot is giving you. So one thing this doesn't do is this doesn't translate a lesson for a teacher. And in my opinion, this is actually the value, because everything that's happening is coming intrinsically from the teacher. And what we've noticed is, for me to tell a teacher, well, yeah, here, go video yourself and let me know what you learned, there's a lot of barriers and problems with that, right? So it seems simple, but actually this really adds the value for a classroom teacher to go through that self-reflection process. So it's just providing probes based on, what my responses are. It gives me some other things to think about. It also leads me to, there's the reflection, so I might write a sentence or two. And the best thing about this is it's safe, it's private only to the teacher. So as the administrator on the account, the only thing I see is how many coaching cycles a teacher's gone through and what the goals were that they chose. So we are really finding that if we want to move forward with, that collective efficacy and sharing videos with each other or just sharing what we're learning, this is really the ground zero. This is really the foundation. Because this is safe and private to the teacher. So, how many of you love to watch yourself on video? Yeah, exactly. So if I can get a teacher to do that, what else could we do? If they get comfortable with this, what's the opportunities from there? So let's talk about some research, both with the AI coach and then also around instructional, how does this fit into our instructional world? So by the way, I've included all these resources in the app. So I'll just touch on a few here. So the first thing is this was a research study done by Turblanche and others a couple years ago. And what they found was that when comparing a human coach to an AI coach, it was essentially the same thing, produced very similar results. There's also an article that I uploaded for you that reviewed AI coaching through Edutopia, so be sure to check that out. And then on more of an instructional piece, we looked at Hattie's work. And I know many of you are familiar with John Hattie's work, but just for the sake of those that are not, so just a real short review on John Hattie. So John Hattie produced a meta-analysis to find out what leads to student success in schools. So he came out with a book called Visible Learning quite a few years ago. This is his new book, came out in March. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you get a copy. We're really finding this valuable, especially when we talk to teachers. So in his research, John Hattie came up with a hinge point. Now he would be the first to say, we don't want to use this as gospel, so to speak. In other words, we're talking about learning, we're talking about kids, we're talking about schools. There's a lot of variables, right? But at least it helps guide a direction for administrators and teachers. So the hinge point is, through his research, if anything falls above 0.40, the idea is that strategy produces a high effect size. And anything below that doesn't really, his research shows that it doesn't really have an impact on student success. Within his research, he compiled what he calls 10 mind frames. In the 10 mind frames, what he calls them is that they're really core determinants of student success. So a practitioner or a teacher, and now he has mind frames for families, administrators, and teachers in his new book, which is super cool. But these are really 10 mindsets that we should have if we're really looking for student success. And so I chose 3 that really apply to what we're talking about. And these 3, so I'm an evaluator of my impact on student learning. I collaborate with my peers and my students about my conceptions of progress and my impact. And for me, this last one really hits. I focus on the learning and the language of learning. So I just take a moment to reflect. When you're talking with teachers, there's a lot of excuses out there, right? And I've done it too. There's a lot of negativity. But how often do we really focus on the learning or the language of learning when we're talking about kids? So when we talk about an AI coaching tool, one thing we found was, hey, this could help us with our collective efficacy. So just to review, I know this is a buzzword now in education. We've all heard of collective efficacy, but it is, this is the highest effect strategy in Hattie's research. If you notice, it's over three times the hinge point. So building that culture of collaboration, knowing our impact, all of us believing that working together, we're going to help students be successful. And this one you may not have heard of, and I honestly didn't either until we were, really researching to see how this AI coaching tool fits into our system. This is called microteaching. And microteaching in Hattie's research is a reflection of small lessons, but really the value is engaging in post-discussions, so the conversation that happens afterwards. So again, I'm going to go back to, we can easily just tell a teacher, well, yeah, go self-reflect on your video, but if we're not giving them any support, and specifically if we're not following up with that post-discussion, it really doesn't add much value. And if you notice, microteaching also has a very high effect size. It's over double the hinge point. So microteaching is exactly what we're talking about. And again, the gold nugget here is not that I self-reflect. It's the conversation that happens after that. So, what did I learn through the process? What other resources do I need? Hattie even talks about if I'm sharing video, now other teachers giving me different perspectives, that's really where the value is. So we talked about the context of our school district. We talked a little bit about AI and AI coaching. So let's talk about our pilot and implementation. So we decided last year to pilot this. And as mentioned, so I led the work with, and I teamed up with our coaches to really see, I think it's valuable, right? But they're in the trenches, they're in the schools. And so what we decided as a team is, if we're gonna, authentically look at this, let's make it as simple as possible for teachers. Again, when, it really reminded me that as we pilot new tools in our systems, whether they end up being valuable or not, I know when I thought of myself in the district, putting my district hat on, oftentimes we go too fast and we don't really give it the time or the simplicity for teachers to really see if it's valuable. So we wanted to really pay attention to how could we make this as simple as possible. A lot of emotions come up if I'm asking a teacher to video themselves, right? So what we did was, I went out to schools, and for teachers that were interested, either myself or our instructional coaches helped support that teacher. So talking about, hey, what lesson are you going to do logistically? How are we going to, you want to use your phone? Is there a different recording device? And in our school district, we in the past have used a robot type tool that captures video and tracks. Mostly for national boards, for teachers that are doing that. But we decided to go ahead and use that because it's something teachers were familiar with to help simplify the logistics. So as I mentioned, we started with our instructional coaches, and the first comment I got, I had an instructional coach stand at the doorway and say, "So we're getting rid of coaches now, huh?" And I was like, easy. Actually, what coaches have found was, there are some teachers that I can't get to. Or, there's some teachers that won't even let me in their classroom. They're resistant teachers. So we worked together to talk through that. And the other thing the coach has helped with is, just having conversations with teachers. That sounds like you might, have you heard of AI coaching tool? Or, have you heard of video self-reflection? So it helped just kind of get in with some teacher volunteers. And the big part is we had to incentivize this. So what we did was we built a course in our SPSU or SPS University, a 3-hour course. By the way, the AI coaching tool does give you, in this particular one, it will give you clock hours after a teacher finishes a cycle, which is really nice because now I can use that to give teachers clock hours and pay. So this was a great way to incentivize teachers. It was an asynchronous, so as soon as you complete the coaching cycle, you get 3 clock hours and 3 hours of pay. So that really helped us get some volunteer teachers. This was surprising to me. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, especially, how the union would feel about it. I figured we'd get some negative feedback. So we had about 30 teachers participate, and all of them were elementary, but they were all different. So we had coaches, we had classroom teachers, we had library teachers, we even had some resource teachers or special ed teachers, and 100% of them said that the AI coaching cycle was meaningful and directly connected to their work. And almost all of them, this to me was really interesting. So let me put on my administrator hat for a second. Out of the hundreds of observations that I've done for teachers as we go through the evaluation system, one common thread that always comes up is student engagement, meaning that's always a need in classrooms, is teachers needing more support with how well their students are engaged. I thought this was interesting. They didn't even know, but each of them, most of them, found that it provided feedback for them around student engagement. In other words, they provided comments like, wow, I didn't realize how disengaged my students were, or wow, I didn't realize how much teacher talk I was doing. And I was blown away because that's exactly where, in my opinion, we need to go, right? So what I've done is I provided a handout for you in the resources that gives you about 10 of those comments just so that you can kind of read through them. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to give you these questions and either access them now or later. But when you do look through them, what I'd like you to think about is what surprises you, what do you think your teachers would say? And then we're going to hear from my friend Jared on his experience.
Hi, my name is Jared Kennedy, and I work as an instructional coach. AI Coach was an awesome tool for me and the teachers at my building. Essentially, AI Coach leads you to video yourself teach, analyze the footage with a focused goal, reflect on the lesson and glean some takeaways, enact a plan for next time, and then finish by evaluating the impact. I think we as teachers are always working really hard to analyze our impact and effectiveness, and sometimes that's really hard to do. When we just reflect on the memory of our lessons, we often miss out on some of the important breakthrough moments because we were also juggling learning targets, engagement, pacing, assessments, and so forth. So my staff and I found when we watched the videos of our lessons with a really specific and focused lens, we were able to create some very tangible next steps, which led to big improvements in our practices, especially within the units. We really appreciated the guiding questions and the prompts that the AI provided. It was a treat to have someone else lead you through the reflection process, because sometimes the challenge of analyzing a video of yourself teaching is that you see all of the things, and it can lead to some analysis paralysis. So having the AI kind of guide you through it was really nice. On top of all of that, it was super time friendly and easy to use. It didn't take a long time to figure out how to do it, and every bit of the reflection process was connected to your own practices, so we really enjoyed that. I can't speak for everyone, but my teachers and I really enjoyed the program, and we're continuing to use it, and I recommend it to any teacher. Thanks.
So currently we have now implemented this tool. So I'm going to just share with you what that looks like in our district in hopes that this gives you some ideas for your school or district. So the first thing is we needed a guide to help us. As I mentioned to you, we have done nothing when it comes to video coaching or video sharing. As close to that it was our lab classrooms, which was really powerful. So we needed a guide. So in his book, Evidence of Practice, Adam Geller sets out some key takeaways or key ideas as you implement video. And one of them is keep in mind that you're building a culture of trust. And so I've had to remind, so I'm a very passionate person. I want to get in. I want all the teachers to do this, right? So I've had to remind myself patience is key here. And I have to remind myself that we're building a culture of trust. And what I mean by that is we need to be careful, and I say we, Spokane Public Schools, we need to be careful with this becoming a top-down approach. And remember that it's the trust that we're after. And to remind teachers that the video is used for professional learning and not evaluation. So we communicate that regularly. As many of your teachers, I'm sure, teachers are very sensitive to that. We even had one comment in the feedback you'll see, I'm pretty sure I included it, that one teacher mentioned, this is more powerful than my administrator giving me observation feedback. So we use this to remind teachers this is just for your learning. It is not part of your evaluation. Now, we are looking into, if teachers chose to, how could this be like an artifact that teachers give to administrators as part of the evaluation? And this has been a big one. It's okay, and it's actually recommended to start small and go slow. And I'll explain here in a second how this is adding value for us currently. And I feel like I'm a bit of a salesman. I've had to really sell the benefits of working with video for teachers, and I've done that through Hattie's work. Again, I've really honed in on that micro-teaching strategy, and that really has helped teachers understand the power, first of all, of such a high effect size, and they're more apt to participate. And I've talked to our principals about if they're willing to be vulnerable and lead first, and I'll explain here in a second, but we are looking at passing and doing more of a gradual release to our schools, like taking this on at a school level, and our principals are on board. I actually had a conversation with our district mentors last week about using AI Coach to help them with their mentees. And one of the school counselors that was there just talked about how his principal just showed him that day his results from his AI coaching cycle. And it was just really, I just really thought about the power behind that. By that principal just doing that simple thing, the culture of trust that has significantly enhanced in that school. So this is a big element. And we have to allow our teachers to drive this learning. Again, it can't be a top-down approach. And as excited I am about this, and especially for the opportunities in our system, it needs to be driven by the teachers. So our current strategy is continuing to grow this through a grassroots type movement. What's really cool about that is that just kind of happened that way. And teachers are really excited. And what I mean by that is when I go out to staffs and I just share what this resource are, I've been pretty surprised that most of them, if not all of them, say, yeah, oh yeah, I'm gonna do that, that's really cool. Instead of some negative, I really haven't heard any negative comments at all yet, which really shocks me. But I think this is a big part of it. If teachers are sharing with other teachers the value, that's a huge gold nugget. And as I mentioned, so we started as a centralized initiative. In other words, we're folding this into a course where any teacher in the district can take it, but we really want to gradually release this to our schools. So I've talked to a couple schools, especially our schools in improvement. They've included this in their school improvement plan this year, and we're working on like a best practices document because we have to be really careful. We can't just say to teachers, okay, we're all going to participate in the AI coaching cycle and you're all doing it. That's going to cause a lot of problems, right? So what we've talked about is telling teachers that, hey, 2 months from now, this staff meeting is going to be dedicated to self-reflection and talking about reflecting on our practice. You can use AI Coach, you can use something else, but all of us are going to have the conversation around reflecting on our practice. And what we're finding is if I have, let's say, if I'm in a group of 4 teachers and only one actually participated in AI Coach, when they hear the value from that teacher, the next time they're going to be more apt to participate. So we have about 60 teachers this year have participated, and hopefully you're thinking like I'm thinking, like you have 5,000 teachers, you have 60. Well, it's 1%, right? So we heard yesterday about the 1%, right? Again, I have to keep reminding myself to be patient. But again, the value here has been teachers are talking, and it is starting to grow faster. I get emails at least weekly for teachers that want to participate. And now we're in the secondary schools, so we're now in our middle schools and high schools, and I'm really excited about that because I really think, at least in our district, at the middle school and high school level, this tool is going to be a game changer. We have to provide meaning for teachers to make sure this is valuable. So as I mentioned to you, we're in year 1 of an ELA curriculum adoption, so we've been talking to teachers about what better way to progress monitor and take a look at as you go through that curriculum and you're learning what to include, what to take out, how it fits into your workshop, what better way to reflect on your practice. And like all of you, we mentioned we're all doing work around cultural competency, diversity, and equity. And again, I think this could be a game changer. Hattie calls it teachers seeing themselves the way their students do. And I'm going to let that sink in for a second. Every time I read that, I'm just convicted. Like, that's exactly where I want my teachers to be. So this could really add value. What do you currently have, again, in your school or district? And for us, we don't have anything. As teachers are growing in their work with equity, what do they have that provides feedback for them? And we're continuing to leverage our instructional coaches. This has been effective. I've had many coaches come up to me and super excited because they have some teachers that participated in an AI coaching cycle, and now they're willing to do some coaching with them. So that's been a huge success. And as I mentioned, the instructional coaches have really been excited that in buildings that are using their coaches to the max, there's only one, right? So their caseload's really high. And same with our mentor teachers. Their caseload's really high, so this could supplement those cycles. So looking forward, we're looking at, as we rebuild our PLC process and those authentic collaborations, how could this tool complement those PLC conversations? And it made me think about, when teachers in a professional learning community, usually they're looking at student data and they're choosing an instructional strategy to meet the needs of those kids, right? And then they come back and assess the impact using student data. But I thought about it, what if we had a mechanism where they could reflect on their practice on those teaching strategies and looking at student engagement, how much that could enhance that story? In other words, if I'm just looking at student data as a teacher, I may not be looking at the student engagement piece. So adding an AI coaching cycle could really help me see myself the way my kids do and make more sense of what that data says. And going back to Hattie, I love what he says about that assessments are a reflection more of my effort than my students' effort. And again, to me, this is really powerful because it really shifts our thinking when we're in those PLCs. I mean, how often, I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands because it'll be everybody, but how often are we in a PLC or data conversation and the conversation goes something like, well, Johnny didn't show up to school, and which is true, right? Or, well, I taught it to them and I just don't know what else to do. Well, we got to focus on ourselves as practitioners more than, we can come up with a million excuses, and it's not saying that those aren't valid. Most of them are valid. But what are we doing to really look at our effort compared to our students' effort? So, as I mentioned to you, we're looking to the future, and one thing that's really been on my mind is sustainability. How often do we, the shiny new thing comes into our school district, it's really exciting, 5 years goes by and it disappears. So I've been really thinking about how do we make sure that this is sustainable. I really believe in this, and I do think it's going to be a game changer for our teachers. So I've been thinking about, again, how do we grow it as fast as we can without having a top-down approach? So patience is key, and I've realized that I've had to message this. Again, I feel like I'm a traveling salesman. I've had to message this over and over and over, and in a good way, meaning it might be the 20th time, and a teacher or principal says, oh yeah, tell me more about that. That sounds, because remember, our teachers and principals, they're all busy, right? And they don't really grab onto something unless it's meaningful to them at that moment. So awareness and communication, I've got to continue, and it's not just me, our coaches, now our interventionists are participating. We have to continue to message this to teachers. Otherwise, even if it is valuable, it's going to fall away. And, one thing I heard at an ESEA conference a couple years ago from a principal that's really resonated with me is we always plan for our best teachers, always. So as I talk with principals, they say, well, okay, sure, I have like 10 teachers that might participate, but what about the other 20? Well, let's plan for our best teachers. Let's go ahead and set up a time where we're going to collaborate together around our practice. We're not going to mandate AI coaching, right? But we're going to say that's an option, but we're still going to hold them accountable, or ourselves accountable, because we're all in this, to reflecting on our practice. And again, the tool has to continue to be relevant. So we're not just telling teachers, okay, here's this tool, go ahead and use it, let me know what you think. It's got to be relevant to their work. So helping them make those connections, either from the principal level or even from the district level, I think is key. So I wanted to leave you with just some thoughts on how could this add value to your school or district, and if it's not AI coaching, just that practice of teacher self-reflection. So again, this could help support your coaches. Like I said, we have a lot of schools that don't have coaches. So if you have a school or schools that you don't have the funds to fund instructional coaches, this could be your best friend. Like I said, we're starting, actually as of like last week, most of our interventionists are now participating in this and sharing it with teachers. I mean, even though they're not a coach, they can still help teachers with, hey, have you tried, AI coach? And then again, for your schools that do have coaches, this could really enhance the work that they're doing, especially for those resistant teachers. As I mentioned to you, what do you have in your PLC process that allows teachers to self-reflect? So this could really enhance our PLC process, and more on a global thinking level, again, thinking about that collective efficacy. So if I'm in the PLC process and it's not necessarily directly connected, I can still bring up what I learned when I went through the AI coach cycle last month and share that with my colleagues, so it just makes those PLC conversations more vulnerable, and there's more trust there. Same with grade level collaboration. As I mentioned to you, in our district, we're trying to rebuild this, meaning our teachers would say this, up to last year, it was really, the collaboration time was really on their own, and so it wasn't very structured, and they didn't get anything out of it. So we're really trying to think about, as a system, how do we support our teachers to have more effective conversations with each other? And again, I go back to the trust and vulnerability piece. And then, again, with those equitable practices, I know in our school district, we don't really have a mechanism without this tool to provide for teachers to authentically get feedback on their own around their journey with equitable teaching and closing those achievement gaps. So I just wanted to leave you with this, and I think about this. So let's say 5 years from now, if you were able to get 75% of your teachers to participate in an AI coaching cycle twice a year, how could this add value to your PLC and collaborative conversations? How could this contribute to building trust and collective efficacy in your school or district? And again, how could this provide that authentic feedback for your teachers? And again, I come back to, if I can get a teacher to participate in this cycle, what other risks would they be willing to do? And for me, I'm just going to be a little vulnerable here for a minute. I think about a lot how our teachers ask our kids to take risks all day, every day, but how often are they willing to take risks, right? So if I can get them to at least start at ground zero, where else could we take them? So I'm going to leave you with this. I'll let you read this for a second, and I'll give you some context. So this always brings a smile to my face because I have to give you some context around this. This is from this is our most senior instructional coach. She has over 40 years teaching experience. She is highly respected in the school district. She is so grounded in what works, which, as we continue in our career, it is more difficult to stay relevant. This coach, she is always relevant. She's always pessimistic, but in a good way. And then she sent me this about 2 weeks ago, and I just talked to her about it a few times. And for her, to me, this is like a stamp of approval. I was blown away. For her to be so excited about this, to me, tells me this works. And this is really powerful. And then, going back to PLCs, Steve Ventura, if you're familiar with him, he has a book called Achievement Teams, and we're doing a lot of work with that work. I really like what he says about PLCs, that they should focus on appropriating new knowledge about teaching and learning rather than simply maintaining existing knowledge. So what do we have in our school district or school where teachers are appropriating new knowledge every time they're in a PLC? Yeah, so thank you again for your time. My contact information's in the app. Feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. And then if you want more info, feel free to scan. Thank you.